Rotors spinning, the helicopter shook like a caged beast ready to break free. Evan stepped onto the landing pad when billionaire Bastian Stone pointed straight at his face. "Get away from my helicopter!" Laughter erupted around him, but right then crack white smoke shot from the main shaft, slicing through air like a blade. Everyone stumbled back in panic. Only Evan walked straight into the danger zone as if he knew this machine had seconds before exploding. The helicopter shook harder. The tail rotor whipped wind into everyone's faces. Evan shouted, "Shut down the engine now!" Nobody believed him. Bastian shoved him, calling him grease monkey and floor scrubber, but Evan heard the sound of loosening brake bolts, a sound only someone who'd worked military flight safety would recognize. A young technician live streamed the drama, making Evan look like a fool in front of hundreds of online viewers. But Evan didn't walk away. He dropped his toolbox onto the concrete, then stepped into the vibrating rotor zone. The helicopter dropped one beat like a broken bone snapping. What do you think when you see danger right in front of you but nobody believes you? Would you walk away or stand your ground? The crowd pressed closer. Phones recording comments flooded the livestream. "Crazy dude thinks he's a hero. This is better than Netflix." Bastian's face turned red with rage. "Security, get this lunatic away from my aircraft." Two guards moved toward Evan, but he raised his hand. "Sir, I'm telling you, those bolts are cross-threaded. If your pilot increases throttle by even 10%. this bird will come apart." The pilot, still in his seat, laughed through his headset. "Been flying for 20 years, buddy. I think I know my own machine." Evan's jaw tightened. He'd heard those exact words before 8 years ago, right before his wife's helicopter exploded over the Pacific. Oil droplets spattered the concrete beneath the engine compartment. The smell of burning metal filled the air. "Dad, don't go in there. It's dangerous." Norris' voice cut through the noise. His 12-year-old daughter stood behind the safety fence, clutching her mother's old compass. Evan looked at her, then back at the helicopter. The main rotor wobbled slightly, barely visible to untrained eyes but deadly obvious to him. "Everyone needs to back up now." His voice carried military authority that made some people pause, but Bastian wasn't backing down. "You're not touching my helicopter. Do you know how much this cost? $12 million. Do you know how much your life costs?" Evan shot back. The technician zoomed his phone camera closer. "Ooh, this is getting spicy. Drama alert." Evan ignored the humiliation burning in his chest. He'd been called worse things, but he'd never let someone die on his watch. Not again. He knelt beside the landing gear, examining the undercarriage, their hydraulic fluid leaking from the main transmission, and something else that made his blood run cold. The bolt pattern was wrong, not loose from wear, deliberately sabotaged. Someone had tried to make this look like mechanical failure. "Sir, somebody tampered with your aircraft," Evan called up to Bastian. "Right, and I suppose you're gonna save the day?" Bastian's voice dripped sarcasm. The pilot started increasing engine RPMs for takeoff. The helicopter vibrated harder. A small piece of metal broke off the tail rotor housing and pinged across the concrete. Evan had seconds to decide: let the arrogant billionaire take off and die, or risk everything to save a man who just humiliated him in front of his daughter. The engine whined louder. The pilot was 30 seconds from full throttle. Evan sprinted toward the cockpit door, knowing he was about to do something that would change everything. Evan dove under the helicopter's belly, dodging the spinning rotor shaft. White smoke clouded his vision. A drop of oil hit his hand, burning hot. He pried open the access panel and found what he feared: bolts twisted counterclockwise, a sign of sophisticated sabotage. Bastian kept screaming, "You're destroying my property." The crowd live streamed and mocked. "Poor guy's show is starting. This drama is insane. Security needs to taser this lunatic." Meanwhile, Nora stood outside the fence shouting, "Dad, don't go in. It's dangerous." Evan heard her but kept going because he knew this machine would explode if the pilot increased throttle another 10%. The tail rotor shed a small locking piece. It slammed into the concrete with a metallic ping that made everyone flinch. The pilot was still preparing for takeoff, completely ignoring Evan's warnings. Evan's hands moved fast, muscle memory from 1,000 safety inspections kicking in. The main transmission housing was cracked, not from age, from deliberate stress. Fractures carved with precision tools. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. He muttered, sweat dripping onto the hot metal. The pilot's voice crackled through the intercom tower. "This is Stone 1 requesting immediate takeoff clearance. We have some nut job on the pad, but security's handling it." No. Evan lunges for the cockpit door, oil-stained hands reaching for the door handle. Security guards finally reached him, grabbing his arms with unnecessary force. "Sir, you need to step away from the aircraft immediately," one guard said, trying to sound professional while the cameras captured every second. Evans struggled against their iron grip. "Look at the transmission fluid. Look at the bolt pattern. Someone's trying to commit murder." But his desperate words were drowned out by the increasing engine noise and Bastian's non-stop shouting about lawsuits and property damage. The billionaire's face was purple with rage, veins bulging on his forehead. "I don't care if you're the Pope himself. Nobody touches my $12 million helicopter." The pilot increased throttle confidently. The aircraft lifted 6 inches off the ground, swung slightly in the artificial wind it created. That's when it happened. Crack, a sound like a rifle shot echoed across the landing pad. Sharp and final. The helicopter tilted 7 degrees to the left, enough to kill 3 people standing nearby. If the rotor touched down, everyone screamed and scattered like startled birds. Everyone except Evan. He broke free from the guards with adrenaline-fueled strength and yanked the pilot out of the cockpit just as the main rotor made a grinding metal-on-metal noise that meant total catastrophic failure. In 30 seconds or less the pilot hit the concrete hard, his expensive helmet skittering across the ground. Are you completely insane? I was cleared for takeoff. Look up, Evan pointed with a trembling finger. The main rotor blade had a jagged crack running down its entire length like a lightning bolt frozen in metal. One more revolution at full power and it would have snapped off, turning into a 200-pound missile of death. The crowd went completely silent. Except for the sound of wind and settling metal. The live stream chat exploded faster than anyone could read. Holy crap, he was right, this dude just saved everyone. Is this real or staged? Best video of the year. An older aircraft technician with grease-stained overalls pushed through the crowd, examined the cracked rotor with professional eyes and went ghostly pale. This isn't mechanical failure, he announced loud enough for everyone to hear. Someone deliberately tried to kill Mr. Stone. All eyes turned to Bastian's assistant, the man who'd aggressively demanded to buy out the company 2 weeks ago and had been acting strange ever since. He was already running toward the exit, his expensive suit flapping like wings. Security tackled him before he reached the parking lot, his briefcase spilling documents everywhere. Bastian stood frozen in disbelief, slowly collapsing into a nearby chair for the first time in his powerful life, not from authority but from pure terror. How did you know? He whispered to Evan, his voice barely audible. Evan pulled a charred component from the helicopter's belly identical to the part that had killed his wife 8 years ago. Because I've seen this exact sabotage before. The weight of those words hung in the air like smoke. Evan used to lead aircraft accident investigations for the military before retiring after his wife died in a helicopter explosion 8 years ago. The sabotage method was identical to the case that killed his wife. Nora climbed through the fence and ran to her father. She was crying, but not from fear, from overwhelming pride. Dad, you saved them all. Evan knelt down, still holding the damning evidence. Sometimes doing the right thing means everyone thinks you're crazy first. Bastian struggled to his feet, looking at Evan with completely new eyes. I owe you more than an apology. I owe you my life. You don't owe me anything, Evan said firmly. I just couldn't let it happen again, not in front of my daughter again. Evan showed him the burnt component. This exact part killed my wife. Same sabotage pattern, same manufacturer defect that someone exploited for murder. The crowd pressed closer as news vans arrived with screaming sirens. Reporters shouted questions over each other, but Bastian held up his hand for complete silence. Ladies and gentlemen, his voice carried across the entire landing pad. 8 minutes ago I called this man a grease monkey. I was dead wrong. This man just saved my life. Do you believe in random coincidence, or is there something much bigger behind all this? 1 hour later, Bastian's office felt like a war room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. But neither man was enjoying the view. Evans sat across from the billionaire's mahogany desk, the charred component between them like evidence in a murder trial. Bastian poured 2 glasses of whiskey with shaking hands. I haven't needed a drink at 2 p.m. in 20 years. Start talking, Evans said, not touching his glass. Who knew about your flight schedule today? My assistant, the one they arrested, my pilot, my security team, maybe a dozen people total. Bastian's voice was hollow. I trusted Marcus for 8 years. He had access to everything. Evan picked up the burnt component, turning it over in his fingers. This isn't about trust, this is about money, big money. He pulled out his phone and showed Bastian a photo from 8 years ago. Twisted metal from his wife's helicopter crash. Same component, same manufacturer, same deliberate stress fractures. Bastian leaned forward, studying both pieces. His face went white as paper. That's from Aerotech Industries, he whispered. I own 20% of that company. What do they make? Navigation systems, landing gear, safety components for private aircraft. Bastian's hands started shaking again. Evan, if they've been manufacturing defective parts and covering it up, how many people fly Aerotech equipment? Bastian's voice cracked. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. Evan stood up and walked to the window, his reflection grim in the glass. My wife wasn't the first, and you weren't supposed to be the last. The office door burst open. Bastian's head of security, a former FBI agent named Rodriguez, rushed in without knocking. Sir, we have a problem. 3 more helicopters using Aerotech components crashed in the past 6 months. Phoenix, Miami and Seattle. Jesus Christ, Bastian whispered. Rodriguez continued. All ruled mechanical failure, all killed. The aircraft owners all had recent insurance increases. Evan turned from the window. Who were the victims? Tech executives, oil company CEOs, real estate moguls. Rodriguez consulted his tablet. Combined net worth over $2 billion. It's not random, Evan said, pieces clicking together in his mind. Someone's targeting specific people. Using Aerotech components as murder weapons. Bastian slumped in his chair. Marcus kept pushing me to increase my life insurance, said it was good business practice. Who benefits if you die? Evan asked bluntly. My business partner, my ex-wife. The board of directors. Bastian paused. And Marcus would get a huge severance package. Rodriguez held up his phone. Sir, there's more. I just got off with the FBI. They found Marcus's laptop in his car. He was messaging someone called Phoenix Rising about your flight schedule. Phoenix Rising. Evan repeated. That's not a person, that's an operation. The room fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning. Evan's phone rang. Unknown number. Don't answer that, Rodriguez warned, but Evan was already pressing accept. Hello, a digitally altered voice spoke. You should have minded your own business, Mr. Walker. Everyone in the room froze. Who is this? Evan demanded. Someone who knows you have a 12-year-old daughter, someone who knows she walks home from school every day at 3:15 p.m. Evan's blood turned to ice. If you touch her, the same thing that happened to your wife will happen to her unless you stop digging. The line went dead. Evan was already running for the door. I have to get Nora. Rodriguez grabbed his arm. Wait, it's 3:20 p.m. If they were going to hurt her, they would have done it already. This is psychological warfare. Call the school, Bastian ordered. Now Rodriguez dialed. After 30 seconds that felt like hours. She's safe still in after school chess club. Extra security is en route. Evan's legs nearly gave out from relief. They know everything about us, Bastian said quietly. Our schedules, our families, our weak points. Then we know something about them too, Evan replied, his voice hardening. They're desperate enough to make threats, which means we're close. Rodriguez spread documents across Bastian's desk. I've been tracking Aerotech's supply chain. They source components from 7 different manufacturers across 4 countries. Look for the pattern, Evan said, studying the papers. Who has access to all the manufacturing facilities? Bastian pointed to a name on the organizational chart. David Chen, Aerotech's quality control director. He signs off on every component before it ships. Where is he now? Rodriguez typed rapidly on his laptop. According to his company records, he's been dead for 3 months. Car accident in Taiwan. Convenient, Evan muttered, but his digital signature is still approving components. Rodriguez continued. Someone's been using his credentials posthumously. Bastian stood up abruptly. I'm calling an emergency board meeting. We're shutting down Aerotech's operations until every component is inspected. No, Evans said firmly. If you shut them down, they'll know we're onto them and they'll disappear with evidence. So what do you suggest? Evan picked up the chart. Component again. His wife's death suddenly making terrible sense. We give them what they want. We make them think they won. You wanna fake my death? I wanna flush them out publicly. Evan's eyes were hard to steal. Tomorrow you announce you're grounding your entire fleet for routine maintenance. Make it look like you're scared, and then we wait for them to contact you, because if this is about money, they'll want to negotiate before you expose everything. Rodriguez looked skeptical. That's incredibly dangerous. So is letting them kill more people, Evan replied. My wife died because I wasn't smart enough to see the pattern. I won't let that happen again. Bastian walked to his safe and pulled out a thick folder. These are all my insurance policies, every business deal, every contract. He spread them on the desk like tarot cards. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. I want to know exactly who profits from my death before I put my life on the line again. Evan nodded grimly. And I want to know why my wife's accident wasn't an accident after all. The setting sun cast long shadows across the office as 3 men prepared to take on an organization that had been committing perfect murders for years. Outside the window, evening traffic moved like blood through arteries, and somewhere in that city killers were planning their next move. The next morning, Bastian held a press conference that shook the aviation world. Effective immediately, I'm grounding my entire fleet for comprehensive safety inspections, he announced to stunned reporters. Recent mechanical issues have raised concerns about component reliability. Stock prices for Aerotech Industries plummeted 40% within an hour. Evan watched from the back of the room, knowing they just painted a target on their backs. 3 hours later, Bastian's phone rang. Mr. Stone, this is Director Chen calling about your safety concerns. Bastian looked at Evan and Rodriguez, who were listening on speakerphone. They all knew David Chen was supposed to be dead. I think there's been a mistake, Bastian said carefully. I was told you died 3 months ago. A cold laugh. Death is a flexible concept in my business, Mr. Stone. I hear you're having doubts about Aerotech components. More than doubts. That's unfortunate because doubt is expensive. It cost companies, it cost people, it cost your friend Evan his wife. The admission hung in the air like poison gas. Evan's hands clenched into fists. This man had just confessed to murdering Sarah. What do you want? Bastian asked. A meeting tonight. Pier 47. Come alone or your daughter's school bus has an unfortunate brake failure tomorrow morning. The line went dead. Rodriguez was already typing frantically. Pier 47 is industrial. No witnesses. Perfect place for an ambush. I'm not letting him go alone. Evan said. You're not going at all. Bastian replied firmly. This is my problem. Like hell it is. They killed my wife. They threatened my daughter. This became my fight. The moment that helicopter almost exploded, Rodriguez held up his hand for silence. Gentlemen, we have bigger problems. I just got word from the FBI 3 more accidents happened while we were talking. He showed them his tablet. Private jet crash in Denver, helicopter down in Houston, yacht explosion in Miami, all aerotech components, all wealthy targets. They're accelerating the timeline. Evan realized our press conference spooked them. They're eliminating witnesses or eliminating their client list before we can expose them. Bastian added grimly. Evan stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city. Somewhere out there Nora was in school trusting that her father would keep her safe. How many people have they killed? He asked quietly. Rodriguez consulted his files. In the past 2 years at least 30. That we can prove. Maybe twice that if you count the ones ruled accidental. 60 people. Evan whispered. 60 families destroyed. He turned back to face the room. We're ending this tonight. Evan, they'll kill you the moment you show up. Rodriguez warned. Maybe, but they need Bastian alive long enough to transfer his assets. That gives us a window. Bastian pulled out a briefcase and opened it. On his desk these are copies of every aerotech contract, every insurance policy, every business relationship we've had for 5 years. What are you thinking? Evan asked. I'm thinking Chen isn't the mastermind, he's middle management. The real power is whoever's been buying life insurance policies on all these victims. Rodriguez started cross-referencing data on his laptop. Give me 20 minutes to run this through financial databases. While Rodriguez worked, Evan called Nora's school again. Dad, why do I have bodyguards now? She asked when they brought her to the phone. Just a precaution, sweetheart. Some bad people are angry about the helicopter yesterday. Are you in danger? Evan looked at Bastian, who was loading bullets into a pistol he'd pulled from his safe. I'm being careful, he lied. I'll pick you up after school. Okay, stay with your bodyguards. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Nora, more than you'll ever know. After he hung up, Rodriguez looked up from his computer with a grim expression. I found the pattern, he said. All the victims had their life insurance policies purchased or increased within 6 months of their deaths, and they were all bought through the same brokerage firm. Which firm? Bastian asked. Meridian Financial Services, owned by a shell company, which is owned by another shell company which traces back to Rodriguez. Paused dramatically. Aerotech Industries itself. They've been buying life insurance on their own murder victims, Evan said, pieces clicking together. That's how they finance the operation. It's brilliant, Bastian admitted reluctantly. Kill someone, collect the insurance, use the money to buy more policies and plan more murders. How much money are we talking about? Evan asked. Rodriguez kept typing. Based on the policies I can track. Yeah, approximately $200 million in payouts over the past 2 years. That's enough to buy politicians, judges, investigators, Bastian said. No wonder these cases were all ruled accidental. Evan's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Your daughter looks pretty in her blue dress today. Hope she makes it home safely. Attached was a photo of Nora walking to her next class, unaware someone was watching her. Evan showed the message to the others. They have people inside the school. That's impossible. Rodriguez said. I have 3 agents there. Then they have people inside the FBI too. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. How deep does this go? Bastian whispered. Evan stared at the photo of his daughter, remembering the last photo he had of his wife before she died. Deep enough that we can't trust anyone except ourselves. He picked up Bastian's spare pistol and checked the clip. Tonight we end this, whatever it takes, and if we don't make it back? Bastian asked. Evan looked at the evidence spread across the desk. Proof of dozens of murders, hundreds of millions in fraud, and a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of government and business. Then we make sure this evidence gets to someone who can't be bought. As evening approached, 2 men prepared to walk into a trap that could either expose the deadliest conspiracy in aviation history or add their names to the growing list of victims. Pier 47 midnight. Evan and Bastian approached the meeting point with bulletproof vests under their jackets and FBI backup positioned 2 blocks away. Far enough to avoid detection, close enough to respond. Mr. Stone, a voice called from the shadows. David Chen stepped into the light, very much alive, flanked by 2 armed men. You caused quite a stir today, Chen said casually. Stock market chaos, panic selling very expensive good, Bastian replied. I hope it cost you millions. Chen smiled coldly. Actually, we made money shorting Aerotech stock before your announcement. We always profit from chaos. Mr. Stone. Evan stepped forward. You killed my wife Sarah Walker. Yes, I remember her. She was asking too many questions about component failures, had to be silenced. The casual admission hit Evan like a physical blow, but he stayed focused. How many others? Evan demanded. 63 confirmed kills over 2 years, Chen said proudly. All ruled accidental, all insured through our shell companies, all perfectly legal murders until today, Bastian said, pulling out a digital recorder. FBI, you getting this? Chen's confidence cracked. You're wired. Every word. Rodriguez's voice came through hidden speakers as FBI agents surrounded the pier. David Chen, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud and racketeering. Chen's men drew their guns, but laser sights immediately appeared on their foreheads. Drop your weapons, FBI agents shouted from all directions as Chen was led away in handcuffs. He screamed, you think this ends it? We have judges, politicians, you can't stop Phoenix Rising. Maybe not, Evan said quietly, but we can stop you. 3 weeks later, Bastian stood at a press conference that made international headlines. Phoenix Rising has been dismantled. 63 families will receive justice. Aerotech Industries will be completely restructured under federal oversight. He looked directly into the camera. The man who saved my life 3 weeks ago taught me something important. Sometimes doing the right thing means everyone thinks you're crazy. At first, Evan watched from the back of the room. Norris, hand in his. Mr. Stone publicly apologized to my family, he said to a reporter, but the real apology goes to all the families who lost loved ones because of defective parts outside the courthouse. Nora gave Evan their mother's old compass. The needle spun slowly, then stopped, pointing true north. Dad, Nora said, are you happy we helped people? Evan knelt down, looking at his daughter's face, so much like Sarah's. Yes, sweetheart, because sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do. There are moments when we don't need to be respected, we just need to stand in the right place.